The base is dropped on a Friday edition of Soccer Down Here. It's a freestyle Friday. There's all kinds of things to talk about. We will do our best to cover as much of it as possible. There are matches scheduled for this weekend, and it appears that they will go ahead in Major League Soccer. There's a massive story that could change a lot of things with Major League Soccer in Dell Loy Hansen of Real Salt Lake and the Utah Royals in the NWSL. And the Real Monarchs in the USL Championship. We will get into all of that if you have not been paying attention, as I forgot one button mash to do. I'll start again. The base is dropped. It's a Friday morning. I probably need some more caffeine. So I do have my charger today, so we will have a full show, so that's good. John's flashing Mountain Dew at us. That's always good. Yeah, one of those things. It's called producers, and we don't have them, so sometimes buttons don't get pushed and things happen, and yeah, sorry. Anyway, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got games scheduled for this weekend that appears like they will go ahead. We have a massive story unfolding in Utah with Dell Loy Hansen of Real Salt Lake, the owner of that team, the owner of the Utah Royals, the owner of the Real Monarchs in the USL Championship. That just keeps getting uglier and uglier by the minute. There's some updated things that have happened, I believe, in the last hour that we will update you on. We'll also get you caught up on what's going on with Lionel Messi and what could happen with him, what other moves are happening in Europe. You have the Community Shield matches this weekend, women's and men's, women's for the first time in 12 years. All kinds of different things going on this morning, but we've got to start with the news out of Salt Lake City. Yesterday was one of the craziest things I have seen in terms of a meltdown that started with self-inflicted comments that just kept going. And just it felt like every turn kept getting worse. And more individual mistakes. Yeah, maybe, Katie, the producer should have hit the mute button on Dell Loy Hansen multiple times. They did try to drop the archived audio and video for a while. Then they decided they wouldn't. He owns these stations. I mean, it's just, the whole thing's madness. I think everybody is probably caught up on how it started, at least, yesterday with... For some reason, his reaction to players not playing on Wednesday night was to say something about, it's like somebody stabbed you and you're trying to figure out how to pull the knife out and move forward. Okay. He said that in response to this, and it sounded like punishment, no fans back in the stadium at Rio Tinto. They were set to have fans on Wednesday night. People would be let go. He would be cutting back on funding to the team's foundation. He also said he wasn't going to fund the team in the same way. He said, it's taken a lot of wind out of my sails, what effort I want to put into recruiting players and building a great team. It just seems like that's not a very good path to take. So that happened in, I think, our time, lunchtime. This was on a morning show in Salt Lake City. And players, former RSL players, current players in MLS, had plenty of things to say about this. Nick Raimondo said he was disgusted by these comments. Josie Altidore said that Hansen needs to sell the team, and he's got a group who is interested in buying it. Later in the day, Don Garber said he disagreed with the comments. I think at times we're getting into like statement judging, and people have been very harsh on Garber and MLS, and I think you have to understand some of the legal ramifications. They can't just fire off whatever they want to say sometimes because of contracts, because of whatever ownership agreements that we've seen some. We know some of the Constitution stuff with MLS. We don't know all. I put that to the side. After Garber said he disagreed with the comments and then MLS stands for equality, the basic statement. Then a couple of things were going on. Hansen went back on the radio, which was not a good idea. It didn't get any better. He was on with Spencer Checketts, who's the son of RSL founder Dave Checketts, on another station that Hansen owns. He said that he was misinterpreted because he was focusing on the COVID comeback. There was no misinterpretation. You said what you said. I can't believe that's the way you try to explain yourself. Anyway, as that's going on, then The Athletic had an article that was a great piece of journalism to get all of these different all of these different things. Andy Williams, former RSL player and scout, who's currently furloughed, and he's not coming back now, he had tweeted before this article came out. He had, I believe before they'd contacted him, he had tweeted, "It's Donald Sterling Part 2. Now, if you don't know, Donald Sterling is the former owner of the LA Clippers who had some horrendous racial statements that he made. This had not gone there directly yet. This was looking incredibly insensitive, looking incredibly foolish. Okay, well, it went there in this article. Andy Williams quoted as saying he's blanking racist, to be honest. Said, oh my God, what did he just say? He's been in those situations with him, and they detailed many of them. There was a 2016 incident when Hansen said about Kellen Acosta, as RSL folks were there for the Development Academy playoffs. They played FC Dallas the night before. FC Dallas won. Kellen Acosta scored. And Hansen said when meeting him the next day as they're walking between the fields, when are we going to lynch this guy? That's what Dell Loy Hansen was quoted as saying, and another witness backed up Andy Williams' claim, Kellen Acosta's former agent. Throwing the N-word around, saying that Albert Rusnak's agent, who is black, said, is that how you speak African, to Rusnak and his agent. Aaron Maud said that Hansen said to him, oh my God, I thought you were a thug, when he had his hoodie on in an elevator. Yeah, that's where we're at with this. So since all of this has come out, there's been more statements from the Major League Soccer office, from the NWSL office, from the commissioners of both, from the players' associations of both. Ziara King for the Utah Royals has made statements along the way of all of this. Former players have made statements along the way of all of this. This is completely and utterly untenable. It's not going to continue. Now, again, I think people are judging MLS and NWSL differently, and they have different, contractual relationships with owners. One, in the NWSL, you own franchises. In the MLS, you are an owner investor. So just getting rid of somebody is not the same for either league. They have different processes, and there are processes you have to follow. There's legal things you have to follow here. Because I've seen people say, just take the team away from him. Just do it. Just do it. You got to do it right. You've got to get all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted. Now, you've got to do that incredibly quickly because this cannot linger. No question. But slow down. Let them get it done correctly because this is not going to continue. There is no way. From what we know in Major League Soccer, and I do not know the NWSL process for kicking somebody out of the league, basically. The NBA had to force a sale of the franchise. Is that the correct wording, John?
Yeah, that's the best. That's the way to phrase it.
Because they couldn't take it away from him because he owned it. They had to force a sale.
Yeah.
Okay.
You will sell this team.
Yes. I would assume NWSL is more comparable to that because it's a franchise situation that is similar. We don't know what bylaws have and what you can do here. MLS is very different because you are an owner-investor. You own part of the league. You don't necessarily own the team. You can be booted out by a 3/4 vote of the Board of Governors. However, you have to be given a fair market price for your share of the league. RSL, according to the Forbes valuations that were published in November, now these are going to be very different because of COVID. In November of 19, they were valued at just over $200 million. Those valuations were on the low side of some of the transactions that we've seen since then, but now you have the COVID side of things, and I have no idea what a fair market value is. Don't know. Don't even know where to start with that. So, this is a club that revenue-wise is in the $20 to $22 million a year in a normal year. It's a very small revenue club. Now, they've been run very frugally, and they have not been losing money. We've talked about this before. They generally break even or make $1 million or lose $1 million here, a couple million, whatever. It's not massive losses. We have no idea what he paid because he was a minority owner in 2010 when he bought in, and he kept increasing his stake in the team to the point to where he could buy out Dave Checketts in 2013. Don't know how much he's put into that. I know at least there was a deposit paid to trigger the full purchase of $33 million in 2013. I have seen that reported from Salt Lake City News. That's all I've got so far in terms of numbers. That doesn't affect the market valuation, though. If you remember, Major League Soccer did this situation with Jorge Vergara, who owned Chivas USA, and they did it to preclude shutting the team down and then launching LAFC. That would not be the case here. But this is a very complicated situation in terms of getting rid of him, which is the ultimate step. It's going to happen. This is not going to continue. But how you get there is different in Major League Soccer. It's different in the NWSL. It's different in the USL Championship. It could be different when it comes to facilities as well, because that's a whole nother topic. We don't know how that part breaks down. Are they owned by the team? Are they owned by him? We don't know. So there's a lot of moving parts here. It doesn't sound like anybody is, putting a blindfold on and ignoring any of this. So things are moving, but that's not easy to put all that together. The owner has to go. There's just no question. There's no question about that. He cannot continue to be an owner in any of those three leagues. Not with these statements. I mean, what's going to happen if he is? Nobody's going to play for him.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing, is you could see the players not play for him, period. Nobody's going to sign there. Like, this is where you're at with this. So it can't continue. There's no way back from this. So how do you get out of it is not simple. So when it takes a little bit of time, and I don't know what that little bit of time is, it can't take long, but whatever time it takes to get this done doesn't mean that things aren't moving. That needs to be understood here, because you have to get everything. You have to be able to get this to where you get everything, because just judging from some of his business practices, from what we have heard and seen, if he owns the facilities separate from the teams involved, that could be very complicated. It could be complicated in the NWSL, depending on what their process is to get rid of an owner. It could be complicated in USL Championship, and I haven't heard anything from USL Championship. So I don't know how you handle all those three different things. I'd assume USL and NWSL, at least the process is probably somewhat similar because the ownership structure is similar. The MLS one is complicated, and you've got to sort out that fair market price or whatever that means. So I don't know how fast this happens. I don't know what each step is, but you've got to get all of the pieces together. You've got to get the teams. You've got to get the stadiums, because there's multiple. You've got to get the training facilities. The marks and all that, trademarks are going to be separate, but the teams and the facilities are going to be the vital thing, and you've got to get it all lined up, and you've got to get it done quickly. And if you're getting rid of him in the MLS perspective, and in the others too, I would assume, but in the MLS one, we know you got to have money. You got to have the money to buy him out, to get him out of the door. So you've got to bring together $200 million. I'm just throwing a number out there to start with. You got to bring that together to get this done. That's not exactly easy at the moment either. So a lot of things have to happen to get this done. It has to happen quickly. That's where we're at.
There were folks who were fans of RSL who were on Twitter yesterday, and in their reaching out to local owners in the area, one of them had got in touch with one particular owner of a major business in the area, and, hey, will you buy this team? And this owner responded, I'm right here. They know my number. And so that was one gentlemen who had expressed interest. There's the Miller family who, with the Utah Jazz, they have expressed interest in the past when it comes to possibly being an owner of another franchise there in Salt Lake City. But KUTV separately caught up with Janetta Williams, who's the leader of the Salt Lake City NAACP. And she has cautioned in her interview with them, she says, we need to just sit back and see what comes up after the full investigation. If the allegations are proven true, she's optimistic good change can happen. And her quote there is, it can be addressed appropriately and properly to make sure that whatever that was said, it doesn't happen again. And yes, that will take time. It cannot take all the time in the world, but it needs to be done with a great deal of forethought, a great deal of care, but you can't take too much time because this cannot stand.
No. Look, this is – I didn't see this turn coming yesterday. That's what's happening these days. I mean, this is, as Christopher Abel said, this sometimes turns into business down here and all these things. It does. Yeah. This affects Atlanta United. I mean, if you're just here for Atlanta United conversation and some MLS conversation, this affects all of that. That's the good and the bad of the way MLS is structured as a single entity. The good is that teams are protected in terms of, bad cycles. If you have a team that's struggling a little bit more at the gate, they're not going to go out of business. You're not going to have a Wigan situation where they're going to go out of business if they don't raise £500,000 by the 31st. That's what they're looking at. You're not going to have that in Major League Soccer. But you also need to all be on the same page. And when somebody doesn't just, lack being on the same page, but throws the book in the trash and then flushes it down the toilet after doing who knows what to it, that's where you're at right now. And you've got to deal with that too. And that's what is just it. This isn't. I'm not even getting into the social side of it, the injustice side of it. I'm not even getting into that right now. I'm just talking strictly. You've got to get him out to protect your business. Period. Mm-hmm. So you've got to do that the right way to also protect your business, because you don't want lawsuits, you don't want these things, you don't want all that. Yeah, we thought racism down here was an European specific segment. It wasn't even Italy by the time we finished doing that with soccer over there, Katie. But yeah, now it's welcome to Utah with this. It's just, it is what it is. It's got to get changed. It's got to get dealt with. And it's crazy. We'll keep you posted. I mean, and I think that's what I wanted to stress this morning, is I think at times people think you can snap your fingers and get out of this, and you can't in terms of the business relationship. There's a lot of moving parts that I hope are moving very fast, but it seems like there's been some judgment. Well, I saw it with MLS's statement wasn't good. NWSL's statement was great. They were about the same thing, because there's only so much you can say at that time. Yeah. You got to do things you got your lawyers checking those statements. You're being very careful in what you say. You have to make a statement, because if you don't, then everybody gets riled up. But you got to be careful with your statement, because you can't just fire things off with any statement, because you've got to protect yourself from lawsuits. Mm-hmm. This guy's obviously a loose cannon. You want to do things in the right way to get it done. That's what it is. So it is lawyer down here. It is statement down here. It's all of those things that have to get done correctly to resolve it, because this is the last thing MLS needs at this point, because they are dealing with, I don't think there's much fallout from the protest on Wednesday. I agree with Abby. I think at times far too many people were leaving Major League Soccer out of the conversation. Many people did not. And that needs to be understood as well. Magic Johnson, in his tweet, for example, he's a part owner of LAFC, so he's, going to do this, but he did. He mentioned MLS. I've seen many players from the various leagues mention MLS. So the players know what MLS did. Some of the media, look, that's how they're going to be. They're going to leave it out. I mean, some of them were leaving the WNBA out of the conversation, which is completely and utterly a joke. So it appears from statements that Jeff Larenowitz gave to the media yesterday, from other statements from other players around the league, it appears that games will be played on Saturday. I don't think there's a guarantee of that at the moment. There's a game tonight scheduled in Canada, Toronto and Montreal. I have not seen anything from those two teams yet about what we could be seeing this evening. Have you, John?
No, I have not.
And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what's right and wrong in this situation. The NBA, the plan, I believe, even though I don't think this has been announced publicly yet either, is to start playing Saturday. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have seen. The last thing I saw was that they were going to start either today or tomorrow, and it is now leaning towards Saturday.
Yeah, I think the plan moved. Originally, there was thought that it would be today. It would start back today, but I think now it's get back in the gym, have a training session, have a practice session. Everything gets backed up that was going to be played Wednesday to starting on Saturday. Yeah. JP Vita says on NPR they haven't said much about the MLS participating, and that's disappointing. I mean, you're not looking for pat on the back for making this statement, because that's not what it's about. But yeah, it should be mentioned. It's kind of a joke, and on the media's part for not mentioning it. That's true. Turner Kirby says this, and I think this is part of this conversation for what happens next with Major League Soccer matches. I think if we don't hear anything by this afternoon, then the games will go on, because you can't have the situation like Wednesday where teams are in markets and then you have your decision. I think you will have to have a decision made before people get on planes to travel. I don't think it will go down like it did Wednesday. Wednesday was, look, you have to remember the timeline, because it affected how everything played out, and it affected why people have, I think, tried to single out Orlando and Nashville, which was unfair in my book. The Milwaukee Bucks, did not take the floor at 4:00 Eastern time. I was listening to NBA radio yesterday, and Rick Kamla, who was on 92.9 The Game, hosts the show there, and he said that his show was ending, and he was tossing it to, up next, live from Orlando, NBA playoffs. At the end of those shows, at 4:00, people didn't necessarily know this was going to happen. So then it happened. Then you're trying to figure it out for the rest of the 4:00 hour. You had things going on in MLS with Orlando and Nashville taking the field. You're turning off the phones. I think it's 75 minutes before kickoff is the league rule. So 6:15, there's no way they could get things in motion. Atlanta and Miami had more time, and that was down to the last minute for the decision to be made. The others then were able to follow. So it just, there's no way it could have been avoided to happen the way it did with people in markets. Now it can. And there will need to be a discussion, and there will need to be a conversation about it. And these owners, and this is the thing that Dell Loy Hansen making it about himself is disgusting, but they do not want to put people on charter flights if games are not going to be played. That is an understandable, issue here. That's an expensive cost if you're not going to play. There's no point in going to not play at this point. I think the statement has been made from the Major League Soccer side, and now what? And I think everybody's kind of waiting to see what this is going to be. I'm a little surprised that the NBA hasn't gotten to the point to where they've said, this is how we're returning, this is what we're doing. The NFL, I think it was kind of all over the place on if teams practiced yesterday. What did the NHL end up doing, John?
The NHL did not do any games yesterday.
Okay, and they're not playing today. Is that true, or is that definite, or is that a guess?
Last word I had was they weren't playing today. I'll double check.
Okay. So, I mean, that's why, it's kind of coming into the show this morning, I don't know what to talk about, because I think we're going to have a game tomorrow afternoon. I do believe that there will be a game right now. I think that's the plan. NHL is off today, definitely.
Yes, Thursday and Friday, back on Saturday, and they'll reschedule their.
So they're scheduled to be back on Saturday. I would assume that everybody will be. I know one of the issues with the NBA was trying to sort out what players could do in addition to this. I have said it throughout all of this, and I still believe it to be very true. I think the platform is much larger and taller and stronger when these games are happening as opposed to games not happening. I think players have a bigger platform to make these statements if games are happening. So I don't think for the NBA perspective, not finishing the season, although you're in the postseason, that's a pretty big statement. I do think that fades. Playing the rest of this is important in terms of being able to continue to make statements. But what more can you do? What are the additional ways to make your case? And that's one of the questions in the NBA, at least it was yesterday afternoon, and I haven't really heard a whole lot of clarity on how that's going to go. I would assume that would be part of the conversation in any sport. And I think it is a very valuable thing. We saw the statement that was made last night with the Mets and the Marlins, and that was a very strong statement. But now what? Now where do we go? And that's what I want to see is now marshaling this to push forward and to take the statements to clear, I think, pieces of action. And that's what the players need to do. It's what the leagues need to do to back their players. And that's what needs to happen next. And it needs to happen, I think, quickly, because then that gets the most power from what happened this week. And we will see what happens next.
Yeah. Yesterday was one of the most wild days when it comes to one particular story and its evolution that we've had in a very long time. It goes from one interview to a second interview to a large piece. If you don't subscribe to The Athletic, I'd recommend looking at Alex Behar's reporting from the Salt Lake City Tribune, which was another part of the time frame of yesterday. And also, I've referenced KUTV as one of the television sources with all of the work that they did. So if you don't have a paid subscription, I'd go and check and keep an eye on what Alex Behar's reporting with the Salt Lake City Tribune. He did a bang-up job there yesterday. But yesterday was a wild day with one story and all of the different angles in it. And so it was, we just get to figure out where it goes from here and the next steps. But those next steps on a bunch of different fronts, that's what we have to monitor.
Yeah, that's that story. I mean, I'm talking about games. Like, yeah. What's the schedule going forward? And that's the hard part here. This is going to be a lot of moving parts on a lot of fronts. I do wonder if the Dell Loy Hansen story ends up merging into the bigger story, including the protests from Wednesday, and if they get tied together. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know what can really make sense with all of that. Burns says, from what I've read, the NBA players want to recruit the owners to engage more intensely in the political processes to address police brutality. I think that's a very good idea and will help matters. Arthur would obviously extremely be well positioned to pressure Georgia politicians on this issue. And he has, and he's been very vocal in it. And I think some owners in these various leagues have not, or have been against some of the things the players have said and done, as we're seeing in Utah. So, yeah, that's definitely part of it. And I think that's going to need to be part of this conversation going forward. But what that looks like in a short period of time is tough. There's a lot to nail down before games come back, I would assume. And what those things look like, I just don't know. I do think a lot of people are waiting to see what happens with the NBA. I think they are probably in the lead position here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. There is some news this morning on the Hansen thing in Utah. His wife sent text to David James, who's involved in the RSL broadcast team and with Channel 2 in Salt Lake City, defending him, talking about things that he had done and things that he is or isn't. They don't really refute anything that's been said. So, I mean, I don't know what kind of value you're putting to it. I don't know. Had questions, do you see RSL not playing tomorrow, but then the rest of the league does? I really, truly don't know where this goes. One thing that is clear, and Jason Nix asked it, and I've seen the question asked a lot, Franco Escobar is suspended for the next game, period. And they haven't played a game, so he's suspended. He has to sit out a game that is played. You don't get credit for a game that's not played. So, and he doesn't sit out that game when it gets rescheduled. That's not how it works. He's, suspended for the next game. And right now, the next scheduled game is Saturday. It's, just like if somebody's suspended in baseball and a game's rained out, they're still suspended. They don't get credit for the rain out. Shiva says, so if NBA decides not to finish the season, and that, I want to make this clear, that is pretty much off the table right now. If you're not paying close attention, I think, to the whole conversation, you might miss that, because that was brought up early on. Yesterday, it came out pretty clearly from all of the insiders who are in the bubble. Woj from ESPN is leading the way on a lot of this, that they're going to play. Yeah. They're going to finish the season. They're figuring out what that looks like in terms of making the statements that they want to make and the ability to do so. And the NBA's given them a lot of latitude to do that, but what more can they do? How can we take this to the next step, I think, is what the players are asking. But I don't think there's any fear at this point of the NBA not returning to play. I just don't know if the timeline is understood at this point. The question Shiva said was, if the NBA doesn't, would the others not either? And I don't think that's the case either. I don't see that happening, but I don't know what the timeline is. And that's the hardest element of this.
Yeah, and obviously we'll keep an eye on all of the different aspects of sports. Taka's in on the Twitter timeline this morning. He says, holy crap, man, I had heard some of the DLH stuff, but none of that. Yeah, it's time to go, good riddance. And then his last sentence goes into what we've been talking about in the first half hour. He says, MLS needs to either use or create a method for ousting an owner properly for sale or interest purchase back by the league.
Well, no, they have it. They have it, but you got to follow it. And a big part of it is you got to pay them off. You got to buy them out. Money. You've got to put that together. And I'm sure they have reserves. I'm sure the league has an ability to do that. All of those things are stretched right now. And Matt Wagner says this, and I'll disagree, but I want to make it clear why. Matt says, not trying to be the Debbie Downer, but if matches do get postponed, the season could, in air quotes, be at risk, given that it has already been abbreviated. If that happens, so be it, but it should be interesting to see how things go. I think, one, this is not a long-term stoppage of play. I don't see that right now because I don't think there's a lot of value in that happening. I think if it's not a long-term stoppage of play, then you're going to be able to still meet your national broadcast, your local broadcast obligations, your sponsorship obligations, and you're going to want to finish. Because if you don't do those things, then there's more money coming out of the pockets of the teams. So there's a lot of push to finish because of those things. And I've seen people say that as a negative. That's business. That's real. There's nothing wrong with trying to keep going as a business. There's nothing wrong with trying to do it in a safe manner. There's nothing wrong with getting these games played, and if they're behind closed doors, if that's the safe way to do it, that's what it is. If in some markets you can have fans in the stands and you do it safely, okay. But everything's got to be done safely. But yeah, I mean that's not a knock. I think people have tried to say that is, oh look, they're greedy. No. They're trying to stem the losses, period. That's real, and that has to be understood here. So when Matt, is saying, maybe they just stop the whole thing because of games being postponed, I think then you're losing more money, and I don't think that happens because of that. You would save some because obviously you're not doing some game days, but now you're down, at least in markets where you're not having fans in the stands, to minimal staffing on game days. I don't know what the magic number is. I would assume that they said they wanted to play 18 more games after the MLS's back tournament because that met a lot of obligations and they were able to lose the least amount of money by playing that number of games. You're probably still going to want to hit something like that.
Yeah. First thing that popped into my head was take the game that was missed and put it at the end of the segment, since you don't know when the next segment is going to start. You would assume that there's going to be a couple of weeks gap between where we are right now.
I don't assume there'd be a couple of weeks gap. There's not enough time for a couple of weeks gap. Why would there be a couple of weeks gap?
Because I'm looking at it from the perspective of the quarantines.
There's no quarantine. No.
In Canada.
But you're not going to Canada. That's pretty much been understood. You're not going to be able to go to Canada if there's quarantines. Forget it. You can't play in Canada. There's just no way. If there's any issue with quarantines, if there's a threat of quarantines, they're going to have to come into the United States and play. And they're not going to be quarantined coming into the United States, correct?
Not
the Canadian teams.
No, they're not.
Okay,
and
so then there wouldn't need to be a delay.
Of Toronto trying to find a base of operations.
That's what. If there's any delay, that would be the reason. It's not about quarantines, because I don't think you're going to be able to schedule the rest of the season in Canada. Now, do you do another 6-week or 6-game kind of segment to try to give an opportunity for the Canadian teams to play in market against U.S. teams? Perhaps. Maybe there's a week off in between, but I don't think it's 2 weeks. I just don't think you have the time in the calendar to do it, because you got an MLS Cup set for mid-December, and I don't know how much further you want to push it back.
Well, I mean, like I said, the first thought in my head was to put it at the end of this particular segment, whether you're ending your matches on a Saturday or you're ending them on a Wednesday, you put it on that following.
Hold on, put what at the end? Explain it. I don't know what you're saying.
The game that did not get played.
Right.
Midweek.
You can put it wherever, but you could do that.
Just put it at the end of this particular segment.
You could actually put it in the middle of the last week if you wanted to, at least for some of them. I'd have to check everybody's schedule. Like for Atlanta, for example, you could play on September 9th on Wednesday before the final game of the segment if you wanted to, because you're not playing that midweek. Okay.
Because, that was the first thought that popped into my head, was either take it to the end of that segment that you're in. If it's a Wednesday, if your last game's on a Wednesday, it's on that Saturday. If it's on that Saturday, then you go to midweek. But if there's that gap for a team like Atlanta United, then that would fit too.
Yeah. Byrne says, might they move MLS Cup into January? I think they could. I don't think they want to, because then that would affect the start of the next season. There's things in the CBA about the amount of time between the end of one season and the start of the next, that the later you go into the next one, or the later you go this season, you have a later start next time. And we don't know how that affects with CONCACAF, because there's no clue. All of it's really tough. And I don't think you want to delay it if you don't have to. I think the Canadian teams will have to take up bases in the U.S. I just don't see another way around it unless things change, and I don't see things changing in terms of infection rates enough quickly for that to happen with whatever this next schedule is, or the political situation with it. So it's rough. I mean, we're all throwing hypotheticals out. Matt says, could you have another tournament? You could. You could have, your next step, and I think this is why MLS hasn't announced the next 12 dates yet, is to give flexibility. You could take teams to different parts of the country and do mini bubbles if you had to. I mean, so far with this return to play, we have seen one reported positive test in Chicago. It did not affect the scheduling of a game. The player was not involved in the match. They were separated from the group. We have not seen an outbreak in any team. So far, this element of return to play with game day travel has worked so far. You're very early into it. Teams were, about to play their second games, and it was stopped. So we don't know if it's 100% successful, but I think so, that it's worked all right. We'll just have to see long term if that's going to work in this phase. But I think they've left the possibility for those sorts of things next based off what happens, because we're all wondering what happens in so many different phases of our lives. And I don't think these leagues are any different. I think the way MLS has done this has been about as safe as you can be with the scheduling side. They didn't announce the whole rest of the schedule through December. They said, we want to play MLS Cup. I think it was December 13th. That's the number that's sticking in my head. You want to play it then. You want it to work this way, but you didn't announce all of the steps in between to give you more flexibility. So now you're probably going to need a little more flexibility. Clayton Poss says, I'm interested to see the plan to finish the 2020 CCL, then turning the corner for the 21 CCL, especially with qualifying still needed. It's a good question. There had been talk of in late September the current CONCACAF Champions League resuming. At least that was coming out of the Honduran media. Have not seen anything about games here with MLS teams and what that would look like. That was about Montreal and Olympia. No idea how you finish it. No idea if it has to be finished right now for a Club World Cup in December, which I think is incredibly unlikely. The Copa Libertadores is not going to be finished until January. So, however, you're going to take a South American team in, you're going to have to figure that out. You know, CONCACAF shouldn't try to squeeze it in just to do it because, I mean, CONMEBOL in South America has already said, look, yeah, we're not doing it. I don't think it's going to be gone, Clayton, because just looking at past precedent and how CONCACAF has done these things, I don't think they scrap it and just discontinue it. Could they continue it early next year? Yeah, they could. The way it's currently structured gives you flexibility to push the CONCACAF tournament later into 21 and still have a champion. Now, here's the flip side. In a normal time, that'd be fine. In this one, it might not be possible because there is a plan to have a Club World Cup that is larger with 3 CONCACAF teams involved in it in 21. And the assumption was that would basically replace the Confederations Cup. Because that's not supposed to happen this time. So that would mean it would be in the summer. So that would mean you'd need to have the 20 winner done and the 21 winner done by then. If you're not going to have a 20 Club World Cup, then you could do both, not quite at the same time, but if you had to do it in some kind of concurrent fashion, you might have to. I mean, the thing that I've gathered with all of this and the thing that I've wrapped my head around, and I hope we all can, is there are issues with precedent in terms of it, but in terms of scheduling and what's normal and what's balanced and what makes sense in a normal world, no, it's just all out the window right now as they try to figure out how to make all these things happen. And the reason they're trying to make them all happen is money, financials. Mm-hmm. The Club World Cup is a sold product. Like it has sponsorship attached to it. It has advertising attached to it. You don't want to give money back. CONCACAF Champions League, same thing. Gold Cup, same thing. CONCACAF Nations League, same thing. You want to be able to make as much money as possible because it's critical. It's critical for all of the smaller national federations in CONCACAF to have this revenue come in. It's just craziness. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. We're all figuring it out as we go. MLS has to figure out how they have a champion this year. CONCACAF wants to figure out how they have a champion this year, and they have to figure out, is everybody going to be able to qualify in a normal way for next year, because the CONCACAF League has to have some questions around it right now, and that gets people into next year's CONCACAF Champions League and most of the Confederation. Looks like Mexico will be able to get to a champion this time around, and what that looks like with all of the other competitions they have, and who knows? Who knows? Yeah. We're all trying to figure it out. What else is on Twitter, John?
Nathan Pugh is on Twitter this morning, but let me just put a bow on CONCACAF real quick. Last word we got out of CONCACAF was 3 weeks ago, and where Champions League was concerned, the Confederation, this is their wording, is committed to concluding the 2020 CONCACAF Champions League and crowning a regional champ. A further update on a schedule and format to resume the competition will be communicated in due course. The CONCACAF League, CONCACAF has confirmed a new schedule 3 weeks ago. Opening matches due to be played October 20 and the second leg of the final on January 28, 2021. To fit all of this competition into the new schedule, preliminary round of 16, single-game ties at the highest-ranked club stadium. All other rounds played as two-game ties, home and away. Draw is September 21st.
Yeah, and we'll see where it goes. because there's just no way of knowing if that schedule stays true.
Yep.
Okay. What else do we have on the Twitters?
Nathan Pugh, he's asking if there is any update on Barco, and he follows that question with about $12 signs.
No update on Barco, and no rumors on Barco tying him to another club right now. It's been said that it's a minor injury. That's what we were told ahead of the match on Wednesday. That's all I know right now. There has not been a rumor from any media in Europe or in Argentina, which if his representation was speaking there. Nothing has come up since Barco spoke to Argentine television and said that his agent had told him about Fiorentina being interested and unnamed Ligue 1 interest, that later we heard Lyon was one of those teams. That's the last we heard, and that was a long time ago. So right now it is a minor injury, a knock. That's all we know. And, Darren Eales said this week on 92.9 that he's expecting him back sooner rather than later. We were told on Wednesday that he could have played in a must-play situation, but that's not what it was because you had more games scheduled in a short period of time. So Burns says, I don't think it makes sense to sell Barco this window. Prices are down. And I would agree. I think prices haven't been down quite as much as I thought they might be, but he's in that category that I think could be down. His number could be down right now. I think his number could be down right now too because of the injury history, and that's part of the conversation. I don't know how badly he wants to go now or any other time, and that's going to play into it as well. When you can get to a point where you'd like to not sell at the moment because you'd like to get more money later, but you might have to sell if the player wants to go, and there's been no indication of that, but that will factor into it when that time comes. From his statements to Argentine television, I didn't get that sense. And that was from Barco's statements. I didn't get the sense that he is pushing for a deal at the moment. He will go, and it will happen. And it's just when and how and who and how much money. Those are the questions we're waiting to see.
Walt Baxley in this morning, and he's asking if there's any update on the Jonathan Gonzalez rumors.
There hasn't been anything in a while. That was going to have a lot of moving parts no matter what, so no parts have moved. You had to clear a roster spot for him. You had to clear potentially a designated player slot for him, although you might be able to hold that off until next year. But the main thing is you had to clear a senior roster spot, and you haven't. So you couldn't bring him in right now if you wanted to. You'd have to make another corresponding move. But the last reports, which were, I think, a couple weeks ago, Today NA said that they could not come to an agreement on the financials, and Monterrey will try to make another deal with him, with Atlanta or somebody else, in January. Because remember, this was reported as a loan with an option to buy. I think the loan would have been for the rest of the season. The option to buy would have been ahead of next season. So if they're just not going to do the loan portion, you could still make the purchase. It's just, are you going to have the financials and the spots to do it then? And we don't know.
Soccer Over There thought from Nathan this morning catches us up on Twitter. He says, in his opinion, the Community Shield is not a real trophy. Up the Reds, John, that is all.
It's a trophy. It's like a Super Cup. I mean, it's a trophy that you win. It's a real trophy. Like, it exists. But is it the league? Is it the FA Cup? Is it even the Carabao Cup? It's obviously not a European trophy. No. The European Super Cup would be a bigger trophy than the Community Shield. But the Community Shield is a trophy. It's just lower on the list. You win it, you're excited about it. You lose it, it's not the end of the world. A lot of it depends on the club. Like if you're Arsenal in this case and you win it, you're going to be pretty jazzed about winning the thing. If you're Liverpool and win it, it's nice.
Yes.
So, I mean, but it counts. It's just, it's below everything else. It's the least important trophy one of these teams is going to play for this season.
Nathan is referring to it as a giant hors d'oeuvre plate.
It's a Super Cup. I mean, look, people can say on the outside whatever you want to say. The whistle blows and there's hardware at the end. You're going to get some intensity out of it. We saw it with Campeones Cup, which is the same kind of thing, except it's involving teams from separate countries, so that's a little more meaningful. But no, it's a one-off game. It's between the FA Cup winners and the league winners. It's for hardware. You'd like to put hardware in your club. Cool. Done. That's it. But It's just not a big priority.
All right, we are officially caught up on Twitter, sir.
Okay. Well, we've got Mike Conti joining in about 8 minutes or so. Let's get caught up on some of the other stuff from around the world quickly, or around the country as well. In the college side of things, the SEC made an announcement that women's soccer will be 8 conference matches in the fall. Remember, there's no NCAA championship in the fall for soccer. 8 games, all 14 teams will play in an SEC tournament in Orange Beach, Alabama, November 13th to 22nd. There will be a spring season. The format is contingent upon the NCAA planning championships for the fall sports that have been moved to the spring. So whatever they're going to have to do to be, I guess, compliant to be able to qualify their teams for it, they will. One of 4 D1 conferences that have soccer in the fall. The ACC will have men's and women's. The Big 12 will have women's, and the Sun Belt will have men's and women's. That's all we know at this point. Weston McKennie looks like it is all but done to go to Juventus. He's in Turin. The deal, according to German sources, could go as high as $30 million, but there's a lot of things that have to happen to get there. 1-year loan that could be anywhere between $3.5 to $7 million. That's the loan portion. The outright acquisition, according to one source, is if he appears in 60% of competitive games, it's an automatic trigger. If he doesn't, there's other things that could add to it. I guess they'd have an option to buy. You might You might get more money if you win the league. If you qualify for Champions League, probably win Champions League, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It could go as high as $33 million, according to Bild, if every option is hit. That's it. Schalke, whatever they get, is good because they didn't pay any money for him. He came out of the FC Dallas Academy for free. That's why you're starting to see guys signed more at younger ages in MLS to be able to get a return on the investment in developing the player. They do need money, and they need as much money quickly as possible. It doesn't look like they had a way to get a big transfer for McKennie to a place that he wanted to go. Did not expect he'd end up at Juventus. I do have questions about how much he'll play, but it looks like it's going to happen. Byrne says the deal's nuts, and it shows you how poorly run Schalke is. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would have thought they could have at least got $20 million somewhere for a club that he wanted to go to, because it sounded like he wanted to go to England. And I don't know if they just couldn't find a buyer. I don't know, but yeah, it's a weird deal all the way around. Your update in Spain. So now you have had a motion of no confidence against the president of Barcelona, Bartomeu. That's been confirmed. 8 different groups of people have joined it. There are 3 presidential candidates who are wanting to be in an election now as opposed to next year, who have been part of this. They need 16,000 signatures to get there. I'm assuming that's among the membership. We'll see what happens. There's been talk that Bartomeu reportedly has said that if Messi would say, if he resigns, I'll stay, Bartomeu said he'd resign. That feels like posturing because Messi's made it pretty clear he's gone. He ain't staying. It's not happening. It looks like Manchester City will be the team. According to Guillaume Balage, they're the one that makes sense. However, they are not going to let go in getting the deal done because right now they don't know what it's going to take to get the deal done because you don't know if Messi's going to be able to get out of his contract free and clear. If he can, I think they're going to do it. If they have to give something for him, they're not going to give up Gabriel Jesus. They're not going to give up Bernardo Silva. They're not going to give up Riyad Mahrez. They're not going to give up any player that's in their plans for next season. Eric Garcia, who is somebody Barcelona has wanted, they would give him up. They would give up Angelino, who was on loan this past season. Those guys would be in the mix. They don't know what the price is. Barcelona hasn't opened the door to say what a price is. City's only going to do it if they can make it happen. PSG has started to whisper around and say, well, hey, we're interested, blah, blah, blah. They had said originally they weren't. Who knows? You've got parades in the streets of Rosario with Newell's Old Boys fans saying, hey, come home, come on. That's not happening right now. But that was a wild scene in Argentina. Medicals are this weekend, I think Sunday, in Barcelona for the next season. Training starts Monday. That's probably the next thing is, does he show up for the medical? Does he show up for training? Because nobody knows right now. Balage told a story about how in 2016 he wanted to go. He told his father, he's his agent, that he wanted to go. Deal was set up behind the scenes to go to Manchester City at that time. When preseason training started, after the first day, Messi was back with Barcelona. He was comfortable. He changed his mind. I don't think that's going to happen here.
No.
But the question is, does he show up? There's a lot of different forces at play, and there's a lot of speculation. So who knows? I mentioned the Community Shield. The Women's Community Shield is Chelsea and Manchester City. Tomorrow it's at 7:30. You can watch it on ESPN+. You can watch the Men's Community Shield as well on ESPN+. Sam Mewis expected to start for Manchester City. Rose Lavelle hasn't played in a friendly yet. I don't expect to see her. But Mewis scored in a friendly. You would expect to see her in the starting lineup. City was 1 point clear of Chelsea, remember, when the season was stopped. But Chelsea had a game in hand. They gave the title to Chelsea on points per game. Two really good teams that have a good rivalry. It should be a really good match in the morning. It's at 7:30 on ESPN+. Mentioned Wigan and money they're trying to raise in order to save the club. Monday, August 31st is the deadline they've got to try to raise £500,000. We'll see how that happens. Yeah. Chelsea signed Thiago Silva for a 1-year deal, option for a further year. Everton's trying to get the James Rodriguez deal done. They've agreed personally with him, €4.5 million per year. Real Madrid wants $25 million for a transfer. Everton wants to pay less. I think that one's going to get done. Just don't know where the numbers sort out. The A-League Grand Final is going to be Sunday at 4:30 a.m. if you want to get up really early to watch it. Sydney and Melbourne City. They finally got everything finished. There's still huge questions about where things go from there, but Australia finally completed everything. They will on Sunday anyway. Argentina has their plan for their next competition. They were going to do the Copa de la Superliga. Now they've changed the Superliga's name to the Liga Profesional de Futbol. So they are having the Copa de la Liga Profesional de Futbol 2020. It's the League Cup, John. It's not that funny. It's the League Cup. It's the League Cup.
Changing names and
I don't know why they changed the name of the league, but I mean it's the League Cup. That's what they were going to play, so that's what they're going to play. It's set to start, if everything's approved, September 27th. The final would be December 13th. It's like a mini league, so you'd play 6 games in the group phase portion. Teams are divided up. Teams are seeded and then divided up by region. The top 2 go into a Campeón de Copa phase, which is like the championship phase. The bottom 2 in each group go into like a reserve bracket, kind of, a consolation bracket, but there's something at the end of it, and I'll get there in a second. The next phase, so you've got the top 2 from 6 groups. You got 12 teams going in. They'll be divided into 2 groups of 6. You're playing each team once, so 5 more games. So you're going to get a mini league of everybody playing 11 games, which is good. Then there's a final between those group winners in the second phase. The consolation phase, you do the same thing. They have a final. The winner of their competition plays the loser of the championship phase for a spot in the 2022 Copa Sudamericana. The winner of the championship phase goes straight into the 2021 Copa Libertadores. So that's a big prize on the line. They don't have to go through the qualification rounds. But that's what you're doing. You're trying to figure out how to make a competition work because you are changing the format of your league in terms of playing calendar year like MLS does. They want to start the next season in late January. So you've got to get this competition done so teams have something to do between now and then.
There'll be a test later on.
Sure. It's not that complicated.
I was trying to write it all down.
It's not that complicated. It's a mini league.
I was right there with you. It's like, okay, 6 plus 5, that means 11 games. Okay, so yeah, I was following, which for me, I think this early in the morning, I think that's pretty solid.
I guess so. Let's see if our virtual producer can be solid in getting Mike Conti on the line right about now. As John goes blurry face. He didn't turn full Bruce Arena. Percy, we talked about RSL for like a half hour. Hey, what's up, Mike?
What's going on, guys?
Not much. Waiting to see what's happening next. I think we're all kind of figuring that out, huh?
Yeah. My guess is they're not going to play.
You think they're not?
I think they're not. And I say that because the league has gone completely silent. By now we should have had all our press notes sent to us, things like referee assignments, things like that. None of that has occurred. So
I will say on referee assignments, they have been very, very late. I think we've been getting them before Pro has, at least published it on their own. I'm wondering if maybe testing has something to do with that.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know. Jeff said they're preparing to play, but I don't know. We'll see what happens tonight with Montreal and Toronto, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the one that I'm kind of waiting on word. I would assume one outlet to follow for updates on this is going to be Sports and Aviation on Twitter, because they update the charter flights from all the leagues, and that's going to be the tell, I think, on all of it is, do charter flights start to get canceled?
Yeah, I don't even know if I would go that far. We've seen circumstances where, even in Major League Baseball, where teams got on the planes, flew to wherever they were going, and still had strikes. So I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, we're all kind of guessing at this point. Let's take it to another element that could or could not be related to this. The news yesterday out of Utah on Dell Loy Hansen, shocking. Just, I've never seen self-destruction start with multiple radio interviews, and it just kept going.
It's so unfortunate because I perceived Dell Loy Hansen to be a really strong advocate for soccer in this country and a strong advocate for the NWSL in particular. It was really his leadership that got the NWSL summer tournament executed. I'm just so disheartened and let down by everything he said yesterday, and then the subsequent reporting in the Athletic. It's alarming. It's shocking. It's really disappointing. Because, like I said, I think, at least my perception of him has been he's a good owner. He's a good owner for the league, and he's invested a lot into, at least on the NWSL end, and I think you can make the argument on the MLS end as well. He's invested a lot in trying to make the teams he owns, as competitive and as strong as possible, and really try to help grow the game of soccer in the state of Utah and the United States. So, I think it's pretty obvious what needs to happen from here. And this, I think you're right, Jason. I think it's going to be this might be the next flashpoint. Because I think as we learn in the NBA with the Donald Sterling situation, in the NFL with the Jerry Richardson situation, it's one thing to call for the removal of an owner, but it's a process that takes time. Yeah. For a number of different reasons. It's a process that takes a lot of time. And, I don't know what the league can do outside of the statement they made last night that they're starting an investigation and they'll take action accordingly. I just don't know what the league can do on top of it that would accelerate it. And I don't know if that's going to be satisfactory to the players who are expressing concerns about it. It's part of a broader problem too. I mean, I think the league and the players have not been on good terms since the start of the bubble, or the start of that concept. You have the lockout threat. The players have pushed back very, very strongly on the two statements put out by the league Wednesday night. I thought the second one, as I said on our broadcast Wednesday night, was a colossal mistake by the league to try to portray the postponement of the matches Wednesday night as the league's decision. It absolutely was not. I thought that was just an absolutely colossal blunder on the part of the league that now has dumped gasoline on a relationship that was very strained between the players and the league to begin with. So, this is where we are right now. You got a bunch of unhappy players. They're unhappy with a lot of things going on in the world. They're unhappy with the league. The league appears to be trying to slowly get the ball rolling on the Dell Loy Hansen issue, which is very, very serious. But, how quickly can they do that is going to satisfy the people who are concerned about it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Okay, John, you get one question because I owe Mike an apology because he's a very busy man this morning and I did not see his text.
No, guys, I'm good. Keep
you sure? I'm really sorry. I missed your text until I just saw it.
It's okay. It's fine.
Okay.
All right. Well, Mike, obviously, in sticking with the Dell Loy Hansen situation, when you have a player who is as articulate as Nedum Onwoha has been in this process, when he openly says, "I don't want to be here," when you have Ziara King of the Utah Royals sit there and say what she said on her social media yesterday. I mean, you can't have an owner owning multiple franchises, and the USL's come out with a sentence. Jeff Reuter has retweeted it, and we can get into that in just a little bit. But you can't have players who don't want to be a part of your franchises if you want to have these franchises to continue to succeed, and to have these players speak out the way that they have. Who honestly would want to be a part of the situation? Who would want to come into these three franchises in these three leagues if Dell Loy Hansen is still part and parcel to the equation? And so the leagues, all three entities that we're talking about here, the NWSL, USL Championship, and Major League Soccer, they all have to do their due diligence. To your point, they have to do it, but they can't rush. They have to make sure that everything is in place for the decisions that have to be made where Dell Loy Hansen's concerned.
Yeah, and it's really tough and complicated and sensitive. And, part of me thinks, well, you're at the point now where Dell Loy Hansen being able to own and operate those three teams, you're in an untenable spot. You're at the point of no return, in other words. So maybe the best thing that could happen is for Dell Loy Hansen to just voluntarily put his team on the market right now. Don't let it get to the point where the league has to take it away from you. But Dell Loy Hansen doesn't really strike me as that kind of guy that would willingly do that.
Yep.
So it just goes back to I'm just so disappointed. I'm so disappointed. Like I'm in shock that someone that I had a lot of respect for, it was engaging in this kind of rhetoric and behavior. It's just such a surprise to me. And I think what also really bothers me and lets me down is that, and it's tough. I mean, when you're the employee of someone who's doing things like this, it is tough to speak out, but I'm just so surprised that we're hearing this all at once, that no one really spoke up before until now. And I guess that's what makes it so jarring. But I get it. I mean, it's really, really tough when you're working for someone who's doing things like this. You may feel like you don't have a lot of freedom to speak up against someone who's signing your paychecks. So really complicated situation. and really, really complicated for the league. I mean, I was reading a little bit about how this would work if the league wanted to remove Dell Loy Hansen, and I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, I guess it would take a 2/3 vote by the Board of Governors, and then they would still have to pay fair market value for the team.
Right. That's a tough one, because what is that right now?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's at least what Charlotte paid in expansion fee.
See, that's
is it the Forbes evaluation, and you try to come up with some kind of a number?
Well, MLS has embraced some of the Forbes valuations that have been put out there, and have rejected others. So, but again, if the team, if the club is going to go into basically receivership, I mean, you're in a complicated situation as a league right now in the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, it's just, that is a very, very complicated situation. This isn't like when the New Orleans Hornets had to go into league receivership, I guess it was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, A, the economy was a lot more healthy. B, you had 29 other owners plus the league that were dividing that cost. It's just, I don't know. It would frighten me a little bit if I were an RSL supporter. I know they're concerned about much more significant things, and understandably so. But, it's not as easy as, okay, we're going to kick Dell Loy Hansen out and that's it, and RSL will keep playing. I mean, this is a very complex situation with many, many layers.
Franchises and the building. I mean, it's three different franchises.
Buildings, plural.
Leagues,
buildings.
And Rio Tinto.
Yeah, I mean, and you've got, 2 stadiums? You've got at least one indoor facility that I know of.
Yeah, whatever training facility or facilities for the teams.
And then the other thing, too, guys, is like, who's going to swoop in and buy this team in the middle of a pandemic? It's the
numbers are smaller than they normally would be. There's just no way around it.
But again, like, I don't know if I'd want to buy a pro sports team if I don't have a lot of TV revenue tied to it, at least until 2023, and I might not be able to have fans for another year or two. I'm going to call that a smart investment. It'd be a good long-term play.
Yeah.
But short-term, you're going to lose a lot of money, a ton of money.
Somebody asked in the Twitch chat, and it's an interesting just bit of trying to figure out what this could be. Said, how many juice boxes for the 3 teams? So, and you'd have to include the facilities, because you can't buy the teams without the facilities, because then you'd have to build them or rent them, and you don't want that. You've got, in terms of RSL, we have seen Forbes, and this was November of last year. I'd assume this valuation is very different now. It was $235 million at that time for RSLs, one of the lower ones, because their revenue's very low. They've been run very tight in terms of expenses. They have been one of those teams that, towards the bottom of the revenues, is not losing money. They've generally been, a little bit to the positive, a little bit to the negative, or break even in all of these valuations I've seen. You're talking around $20 to $22 million a year in revenue for RSL. So you've been able to make that work. They've been a competitive team. You don't have a lot of debt out on the team, at least. We don't know about the stadium, the facility stuff. The stadium's been there for a while. You'd have to buy that. Mm-hmm. The Royals, I don't know even where to start in terms of evaluation there. And for the Real Monarchs, it's tied to the MLS team, but it is a USL franchise, so it has some kind of separate value, and in the training facilities.
My guess is, Jason, the bidding starts at $300 million.
Yeah, that was the number coming to my head, too. We're on the same page.
I think the bidding starts there. It doesn't mean that's what you'll end up getting.
Right.
It could end up closer to 2. But again, I mean, who's liquid enough right now to be doing that?
It's going to be a large group. It's
got to be.
I think what we're seeing more and more, and I mean, Josie Altidore even kind of hinted at it, that it would be a group of people. I think you'd get some soccer celebrities or even like a Nick Raimondo, who I think is kind of, made it clear that he would want to help rescue this thing and fix it.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have the kind of money to do it himself. Josie doesn't have the money to do it himself. But could they be the soccer front people for some other investors? They could.
Well, and here's the other thing now. I mean, isn't the league allowing private equity firms to start owning teams or owning parts of teams?
That's a really good point, because that could come into play here.
Now, if I'm an RSL supporter, I'm not quite sure I want that, because what a lot of private equity firms do is they go in, they buy something, they slash and cut, strip it down, and then sell it for. They basically, it's a short sale. It's not exactly a short sale, but you know what I mean. You go in there, you strip it down, and then you sell the stripped down company. Yep. I'm not quite sure. Now, again, not all private equity firms are like that. I want to be very clear, but that's, at least in our industry, that's typically what happens. So, again, really, really, really tough situation. I feel awful for their players. I feel awful for their fans. I can't even imagine what it must be like to be one of their fans. It's almost like what he said on the radio yesterday was retaliatory towards their fans.
Yeah.
Certainly their staff.
Yeah.
And look, I get it. I mean, emotions are running extremely high right now, but I just can't believe he would not have used more discretion in what he said yesterday. Yeah. I'm almost speechless at that.
And it's disappointing, and I'm just going to use that word, that you have a league, and I'll go back to the NWSL, with what he did to make sure that the NWSL Challenge Cup came to pass, and gave the NWSL that platform where they could grow the league. And Major League Soccer being at a point where its league can grow, with St. Louis coming online, with Charlotte coming online. You're seeing all of this growth, and then you come out with comments like this where your properties are growth properties, and if you look at it even just from the strict economic perspective, you hurt your own investment with your point of view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's stunning to me.
Yeah. And I'll go back to what I said a moment ago. I mean, if not for him, the NWSL might not have even had a season this year. So I don't think that's too far of a leap. So that's just what makes it so disappointing, because, the positive things he did, the positive stand he took about his former coach using a horrible slur after a Leagues Cup match and firing him. You look at that, you're like, okay, that's good. That's what he should do as an owner. That's good leadership. You look at what he did with the NWSL Challenge Cup. You say, okay, that's good. That's good leadership. And then you get that report coming out last night, and you're beginning to wonder, was it all a fraud? It's crazy. A lot of things are going on in the world right now that just make you shake your head, and this is one of them. I'm totally shocked by it.
I don't know if you're like me, trying to look ahead to possibly having a game tomorrow. It's like, it's
hard. It's really hard.
I don't even know where to start.
I've got my board. I've got my notes.
Yeah.
It's like I said, I'd be surprised. I hope they play. But it's not my call. Orlando, if they do play, and it's almost grotesque even transitioning to this, because, there are very serious things going on right now that players across this league are trying to call attention to, and a game kind of feels secondary. But if they do end up playing, I mean, the one thing that really stands out to me is when we had been talking about Orlando in the late stages of the tournament, and kind of wondering about their depth a little bit. The one thing that I think stood out to all of us was what level of trust does Oscar Pereira have beyond his first group? He's got a very, very young bench. Does he trust it? Well, now suddenly Daryl DK has earned his trust, and what's happened? He's scored 3 goals in the last 2 matches. Yeah, and I don't want to say out of nowhere. I mean, he had a really good pedigree out of college, but I wouldn't have had any juice boxes on that. So you put that scoring production on top of what Mueller has been doing this year, on top of Nani, on top of Pereira. I mean, boy, Orlando they've really got it dialed in and rolling right now. And I know they had a little hiccup. I wouldn't even call it a hiccup against Portland. That's just an emotional game where they got outplayed by a better team. And then they had a little hiccup in their first regular season match back. But I think clearly, and we've said this before, like, Orlando looks pretty good going into this game against Atlanta. This might be the one. I think we really felt that way when they were on that long winning streak in May of 2018 going into the match where I think Barco scored and maybe Joseph. I don't remember. The Mother's Day match down in Orlando in 2018. We kind of thought, this might be the one. Then we thought, coming off the U.S. Open Cup last year, this might be the one. Atlanta United's probably exhausted and tired and all that, and Orlando still couldn't get it done. But this version of Orlando, with a competent manager, with some real class in the attack, still with some questions in the way they've defended.
At times.
I think those questions have always been there for Orlando, but this is as robust an attacking Orlando team as I have seen in my 3 years doing these matches. So really, really tough for Atlanta United tomorrow. And then not being able to feed off the energy of the crowd certainly doesn't help either. So we'll see. I like the fact that Miles was in the starting lineup on Wednesday. That to me seems to be an indication that he's 90 minutes fit. So that takes care of one of your questions. I think if it is a back line of 4 as they planned on Wednesday with Bello, Walks, Miles, and
Lennon.
Lennon. I hesitate because I'm assuming Franco Escobar can't play.
Suspended. Yeah, Stephen Glass, I think, was on earlier. He didn't. No, he's suspended because they didn't play. Unless they change the rules on suspensions, you're suspended for your next match.
For a game that you strike.
It didn't get played. It didn't happen. It wasn't official.
Yeah. I guess if it didn't get played, then yeah,
it's in the same category as a rain out.
Whether it be Lennon or Franca, I think you're going to be okay.
Yeah,
I like
Lennon.
the fact that you have Miles in there. If you were trying to figure this out without both Miles and Meza, I'd be really, really worried. But I think if the match is played, I think the setup is there for a lot of goals to be scored tomorrow, both ways. It could be a really, really wide open, entertaining match. And, one other thing that really, really intrigues me is we did see Jurgen Damm in the 23 on Wednesday. Could Jurgen Damm give you something more than a bench appearance on Saturday? Because if we see Jurgen Damm against Huon, we're going to have the stopwatches out on that. I mean, we're going to have, Atlanta Motor Speedway type speed out there on that pitch tomorrow.
Boogity,
that could
boogity, boys. Let's go racing.
Absolutely. That could be a lot of fun to watch. And I think it's probably still a stretch to assume that Jurgen Damm might be, 60 minutes fit or even 90 minutes fit. But, boy, I am kind of hoping that we do get that matchup at some point because you're talking about, easily 2 of the fastest players in the league. And in Dom's case, one of the fastest players in the world.
Yeah, I guess the talking points for me looking at this real quick, DK's got 3 goals in 2 games. It looks like he's passed Akindelli as the starter up top. The rest of the group's pretty much the same. Schlegel started instead of Antonio Carlos on Wednesday. That spot could be up for competition. Janssen will definitely be the guy next to him. Everybody else has been pretty consistent. Orlando played Wednesday, Atlanta didn't, so they could come in a little more tired. That's absolutely a factor. Atlanta, when you look at Jurgen Damm, you mentioned it, could he graduate up the ladder a little bit? I wouldn't see it to start, but I thought it was a wild card we'd even see him play on Wednesday. Maybe you're more likely to see him off the bench in this one. Kubo Torres, can he move up that ladder a little bit more? He was on the bench. We expected to see him on Wednesday. Could he get into a starting position here with a couple days of training? Maybe, possibly, that progression could be a little bit better for those guys, but I'm probably expecting the same lineup that we saw on Wednesday. Since they didn't play, they're going to be fresh. Robinson would be fitter. Maybe you get a Heineman or a Barco in the mix with their minor injuries. With more time, maybe they're able to play on Saturday, but you're going to have that game made up and probably fairly soon, I would assume. So you're still going to have schedule compression. So you still have to be careful with guys in the long term. I just wonder if the fact that you got the midweek off and Orlando played, if that might help you be a little fresher.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, they had full training yesterday. It wasn't regen. They did full train. Mm-hmm. And they'll full train again today. Orlando played Wednesday, probably did regen yesterday. They'll do something today, and then they fly up to Atlanta. Early flight, by the way. I mean, for a 3:30 game, you're probably, I don't know, you're probably leaving at 8 or 9 in the morning. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of things would align in favor of Atlanta United in terms of freshness. And I do wonder if Oscar Pereira, the way he set his team up on Wednesday with those couple lineup tweaks you mentioned, it does make me wonder if maybe he had an eye towards the weekend. And for that matter, I don't know if you can take Daryl DK out now the way he's playing. He's also young, so you would think his legs probably won't be an issue, but I am curious, did he start DK on Wednesday with the expectation that he would start Tesho on Saturday? And does he have to rethink that now because DK's in such good form?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I look at it like you ride the hot hand, even though I know we're talking schedule compression and in this particular segment, but that I think is one of the things that coaches look at now is that hot, like Mike, when you and I watch the Stanley Cup playoffs, if you've got the hot goalie,
got to keep going, right?
Got to keep going. And so that's what I'm thinking with a guy like DK right now.
Yeah, and he's like 21 years old, right? I mean, it's not like he's 35 or 38. I don't think you have to worry that much about it. So I tend to agree with you, but I do wonder if Oscar Pereira may have had an eye towards Saturday when he set his team up on Wednesday. I hope it's played because I think like I said, I think you'd get a lot of goals scored. I think it would be a very, very entertaining match. There's a lot of things that align for this to be, I think, even one of the classic encounters between Atlanta United and Orlando, with Atlanta United potentially a little teensy bit of a home underdog, perhaps, going into this match. If Barco and Heineman and Meza and Escobar are out, I think Atlanta United is probably a little bit of a home dog here. Without precedent, really, in their meetings against Orlando City. And we've seen some home matches between these two teams really kind of, I mean, the one in 2017 just really open up and get completely off the rails crazy. So there is precedent for that. We'll see. We'll have to see. Like I said, I'm honestly hoping they're going to play. I really, really do hope that happens. But, obviously there are other issues in play right now that the players feel very strongly about, and whatever ends up happening tomorrow, I'll understand.
Mike, I owe you one for this morning. I wish I'd seen your text earlier.
It's okay. I texted you too late.
I should have looked at my phone. I'm surprised I didn't hear it.
If
I have
they
it on
play
vibrate.
Tomorrow, by the way, 3 o'clock on 92.9 thegameradio.com and Sirius XM channel 157.
Fingers crossed, and we'll figure all this out as we go.
Yep. Okay, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Hope to hear you, not see you.
All right. Let's try the virtual producer again for Phase 2 for Doug Robertson. And fingers crossed that this one goes well. Here we go. Whirling and dirling and seeing what happens. John didn't go complete blurry face this time.
Oh, wow.
And there's Doug. How are you, Doug?
I'm good. How are you, buddy?
Doing good. John's with me. We're getting kind of, I guess, ready, we think. Possibly. It sounds like, from what Jeff Larinowitz said yesterday, the plans are to play tomorrow. We're all kind of trying to figure this out.
Yeah, I think they'll play. If the NBA is voted to return, I think MLS has made its point. The only reason I guess it could change is because of Delroy Lindo, but I think that would be more of Real Salt Lake and its opponent stance than one made by the remaining teams in the league.
Yeah, that does, I think, change maybe the conversation a little bit. Rather unexpected day yesterday out of Salt Lake City. What'd you make of everything?
I think the man, Mr. Lindo, needs perspective. I think he needs some wisdom. I think he is mostly out of touch with the remaining 99% in America.
Yeah. Before John's first question, people are wishing your daughter a happy birthday because they saw your post.
Oh, that's very sweet.
Yeah, what was for breakfast?
And they were hoping you enjoyed Waffle House.
Yeah, we did. We went to Waffle House in Villa Rica here. She had the chocolate chip waffle. I had a chicken melt plate, and my son just had waffle and sausage.
Yeah, see, that's strong. The chocolate chip elements from the Waffle House, very underrated and undernoticed.
I just can't believe she's 18 years old. It's amazing to me.
When it came to everything out of Salt Lake yesterday, Doug, Jason and I, we were talking about it in hour number one, and we couldn't remember in a breaking news scenario or in a developing story scenario like yesterday, something that happened with the cascade that it did yesterday. First, you have Dell Loy Hansen sit there and discuss things on one radio station. Then you have fallout. Then he comes in later in the afternoon and puts more gasoline on the fire. Then you have the athletic piece. Then you have the Salt Lake City Tribune. Then you have local television. This was something that started and didn't stop, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger as the day got on. Can you remember a story like that?
There's been so many this year. I'm sure that there has been. Just imagine if he owned one of the New York teams or one of the Los Angeles teams, how big this would be as opposed to Salt Lake. It would not surprise me if before Saturday MLS doesn't do something. I don't know what their bylaws are in their constitution, how quickly they can move to force him to sell or to put the club in not escrow, but you know what I mean.
Receivership or whatever?
Yeah, in a receivership, and it run it until it can find a new ownership group. I know Josie Altidore actually tweeted that he has a group of owners that are ready to buy it, which was interesting for a bunch of different reasons. I don't know if he was kidding or what. But it's an unbelievably just odd situation. I just can't understand how someone can be an employer of so many people, pay them not a lot, I would imagine, and just be so out of touch with the community and the needs. I mean, he says the whole club is about community, and that's why he gets so mad at the players for not playing. And then he says, I'm just going to fire 40 or 50 people anyway. Yeah. And so what kind of sense does that make?
None.
I mean, it's moronic, to be honest with you. These sports owners are very, very smart businessmen, but sometimes when it comes to dealing with people, some of them, not most of them, some of them are just idiotic.
It does complicate, I think, everything for what we're looking at this weekend. MLS set to return tonight with a match scheduled in Canada, Montreal and Toronto. I've not seen any updates there. And then Atlanta and Orlando would be the first game tomorrow. It'd be a fairly early flight for Orlando coming up day of the game. Have you had a chance to go back and look at their match on Wednesday against Nashville with a couple of minor changes to the starting lineup and a 3-1 win for Orlando.
I was watching most of the second half live with Atlanta United not playing Wednesday. And then I watched some of the highlights. And Orlando did some good things. Nashville just did some dumb things. The second goal, I think it was, I still don't understand what in the world Nashville's two center backs were doing on the headed goal. I think it was the second goal. Nashville, it would surprise me if Gary Smith is long for that coaching job based upon how they look right now. And Orlando took advantage. I mean, Orlando was a much, much better team than I think even that first few months in, 2018 when they started so crashed. They look so much better than they did then. They've still got some issues on defense, I think. But they are proving resilient. They're playing attractive soccer. It's fun to watch. Mm-hmm. Maybe the most attractive soccer in the Eastern Conference right now. So I think it's going to be a very tough game for Atlanta United.
Yeah, I mean, this is not even your older brother's Orlando City, much less your father's Orlando City, because you have Daryl Dike, who's been hot recently. You have Nani. You've got Pereira. You have Chris Mueller, who's doing well. All of these weapons that you have to account for if you're Atlanta United on the weekend. I mean, it's a tall order against a team under Oscar Pereira that is not what we've seen in the past with James O'Connor and Orlando versions previous.
Yeah, no, they're taking advantage of all the space on the field. They're moving the ball quickly. It's really the type of passing that I thought we'd see from Atlanta United when it played Nashville. They have speed on the outside. They get the fullbacks forward into the attack. It's a very fun type of soccer to watch. It reminds me a little bit of Atlanta United in its first two seasons.
Yeah, Orlando, I think one of the biggest issues that we've seen with them over the years has been just a disorganization of structure on the field, sometimes structure off the field. Just everything has felt haphazard until now. And when you have Luis Mozzi take charge in the front office side of things, at least on the soccer side, going into last season, the roster's improved a lot. Now they have Oscar Pereira there to put it all together. Do you feel like Orlando now is putting the building blocks together to be an Eastern Conference contender?
That's the $1 million question, because we keep thinking that, okay, this is the final step Orlando has needed to take, and then it blows up and they blow it up. So we just got to see if they're going to be patient. That's going to be the key. If they can maintain some patience, not have any of those long winless streaks that they've had the past few seasons, each of the past few seasons, then yes, they've still got to try to find, I think, those young designated players instead of those older designated players. But their scouting looks to be much better based upon the results of some of their recent signings. Pereira is a solid coach, and we'll see if he's going to end up being a great coach in Major League Soccer, if he can keep Orlando City momentum going.
Since I want folks to read your stuff, not just the tweets and your greatest hits, without giving away all of the information when it comes to your starting lineups and your thoughts on the match in general, give me a player or two that you're looking forward to seeing for whatever reason from an Atlanta United perspective against Orlando City. Who are you looking forward to seeing out there this weekend?
I'm sorry, for Atlanta United or for Orlando City?
Atlanta United, because I want folks to read your stuff, and I want them to see what you're producing. So, without completely divulging everything in all of your information, who are you looking forward to seeing and why?
Yeah, well, last week it was. I'm sorry, not last week. Last week for the Nashville game, I think I said Pitti, and he came up with 2 goals. This week, I really want to see Rossetto. I imagine he's going to be in the starting lineup. He was supposed to be in the starting lineup against Orlando. Obviously, that didn't work out. But if they don't have Hyndman, and who knows, because Atlanta United is just being obstinate and goofy, in my opinion, with its injury reports and injury information, making itself look stressed out, which is not good. I think he'll be in the starting 11. I really want to see him build upon that performance he had against Nashville. I don't want to say it was by any stretch his ceiling of a performance. It was mostly quiet but effective, but I want to see him, make some splashy plays, so to speak, create some chances, do some things that, open your eyes a little bit.
I guess we should make predictions, Doug.
Yeah.
I kind of
have a question for y'all, though.
Oh, okay, cool. I like questions from you.
All right, cool.
What's
All
up?
Right.
Ben Olsen.
Mm-hmm.
Before they signed Rooney, before they signed the midfielder whose name now escapes me, who was going to go to PSG and who's now gone.
Luciano Acosta.
He was on the he was on the hot seat and looked to be gone. And then they kind of got it turned around. You go back to last year, they limped into the playoffs. This year, they're off to a horrible start. Do you think that he's long for that job, or will he get a pass because of all these weird circumstances going on this season?
I feel like he's had a pass for a while. He's a legend. It's one of those things. Like, there's not a lot of those kind of guys in this league who, when you go back and look at every game that DC United has been a part of since 1996, Olsen joined in 98 as a player. There were a couple of years where he was injured. There was a time where he was going to go to England and got injured and came back pretty quickly. He's been involved in probably 90% of DC United's matches in some form or fashion, ever. So that does count for something. But I think it's counted for a lot because he's had good teams that didn't perform. He's had bad teams that he did get to perform. But that I don't see it getting better is the thing. And that's where I'm kind of at with it now is I think he's reached the end of the line. He doesn't have the talent to be much more competitive than they are, but I think they should be a little bit better than they are right now. I don't think that's going to dramatically change anytime soon. I just don't think it gets any better than what we've seen.
Yeah, they keep reaching an equilibrium, it seems, time after time.
That's a good way to put it.
And that's probably, I wouldn't think, good enough for an ownership group that just spent all that money on a stadium and has tried to provide a better quality roster than he had to work with in those final few years in RFK. And I think I called Dell Loy Hansen Delroy Lindo earlier just because my brain is old and, I'm tired.
It's all good.
So I apologize for that.
That got a good laugh out of some people in the chat room, so it's all good. No problem.
Yeah.
We knew who you were talking about.
Yeah.
It's been one of those last couple of days. All right, John, first your thoughts on Ben Olsen and then your prediction.
I think that you get to a point where the message gets stale, and I don't think it necessarily even matters at times who the players might be. You can rearrange all the deck chairs, but if the furniture still looks the same and the guy who's rearranging the deck chairs doesn't come up with any other ideas when it comes to exterior decorating, then I think there's a problem. And I think that we've gotten to that with Ben Olsen. And, looking at the teams in the Eastern Conference, who are they better than? And the answer right now is not a lot of teams in the East.
Well, okay. The question I would ask you is, who are they better than on paper or in performance?
Performance.
Oh, in performance, no. They're at the bottom or near the bottom.
And if you have this talent that you've wanted to assemble that you thought was going to get you into the playoffs and do well in the Eastern Conference, and that talent that you've assembled isn't doing well, then is that on the players? Is that on the messaging? Is that on the coach? And I think
is that on the front office? Because the other thing is that I would say in Olsen's defense is he's had some bad rosters to work with. I don't think this is a great roster. I don't think it's nearly as good as others have. I don't think they're a playoff team in a normal MLS year with that roster, no matter who the coach is. But he's not going to get an Atlanta roster or a New York City roster, and he's not getting the most out of what he's working with. It's not – Jim Curtin was in this boat to me, but Jim Curtin showed development over his time. Ben is about the same as he has been when he got a team to the Eastern Conference Final, and when he won an Open Cup with an awful team and just a fluky run, and when he's had bad teams. I mean, it's the same as it's ever been. There's been no change. So time's up, in my opinion.
I think so. I'm right there with you. I'm going to go for a see, now I'm torn, but I feel like I'm almost since it's the three of us here, I feel like I'm almost completely and totally locked into the notion of the Velvet Driving Slipper Lock of the Week. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. Velvet Driving Slipper Lock of the Week, 2-1 Atlanta United. And Doug, I will go with part of your theory, but half of your theory. I'll say Hisechu gets one, PT gets one, DK gets one, and Atlanta United gets full points. 2-1 Atlanta United.
Doug, what do you think?
I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw. So Atlanta United's not losing streak to Orlando City will continue, but I don't think they get the 3 points. I think it's going to be a very tough game. I think Orlando is probably going to push Atlanta United for much of the game, probably create more chances and get more shots on goal than Atlanta United. But Atlanta United scratches out a point.
I'm kind of looking at this a little bit different than you guys. I think it's going to be a little sloppy in different ways. I'm going 3-2 Atlanta. Okay. I do think the fresher legs will help for Atlanta in the later stages. I think Orlando has had to rely on the same group for the most part for quite a while now, and they played midweek. Can Nani, be dangerous for 90 minutes? I just don't see it, not traveling day of. I think that'll hurt them some in the later stages, and I think Atlanta will find a way. I think Kubo plays at least 45 here. I wonder if he's able to get the start after not playing on Wednesday. I just don't know what his minutes trajectory is, and I think Kubo could be the difference in this one. That's where my head is at coming into it. So 3-2 for Atlanta is where I'm at. I know, Doug,
3 goals for a team that scored 2 in the past 5 games.
Yep. Kubo's going to change it, and I like where the team's headed with it, and I think Orlando will give them some opportunities as well. I think they'll get sloppy. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, but I think Orlando will get sloppy. Like, Huan can't run up and down the right side all day long. I just think he's going to run out of gas. I've never been as big of a fan as some of Joao Moutinho as a left back. I think you can, you can take advantage of that.
He's worth a goal against a game almost for a mistake, or an expected goal a game. Even though I hate that stat. Yeah.
I think so too. I think it'll be a weird one with just a lot of strange things that happen in it. But I think Atlanta will find a way. Maybe I'm being hopeful here. We'll find out. What do you have? I know you've posted some stuff this morning. What do you have coming up the rest of the day, Doug?
We are talking with Stephen Glass and Brad Guzan, who I'm sure will utter the phrase, "It is what it is," at least 3 times in the interview, because it's his go-to phrase. Bless his bald heart. I love him for it. So we're talking with those 2 at 1 p.m., and we'll see what comes out of that. Obviously, we'll have to ask him if Barco and Hyman are still day-to-day. I'm doing air quotes. You can't see me, but that's what I'm doing. And go from there. Right, whatever those 2 say. I really have no idea what they're going to say at this point. But I guess we'll have to ask them about, are they going to play, or are they going to stand in solidarity with Real Salt Lake if it chooses not to play? So there you go.
Well, might see you tomorrow. We'll see where this goes.
No, I'm not going to be at the game.
Oh, okay. Won't see you tomorrow.
No, I went to that first one just to write about the experience, but really there's no point in anybody being there. Because even if they were to not play, you still can't talk to anybody face to face. It's all done by Zoom. Mm-hmm. So I'm probably just going to cover it from home.
Okay. Well, I'll be talking to you tomorrow if there's a game at least. We will do a Southern Fried one way or another. Doug, thanks for the time this morning, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. We'll talk to y'all later. Thank you.
Be good, Doug.
Bye-bye.
All right. We have referees for tomorrow. Nima Sagafi is in charge of the match, Atlanta and Orlando. Jorge Gonzalez is the VAR. I've seen a lot of questions about our scheduling, and as it stands now, we will have the run-up tonight at 7 o'clock. Kelly Francis hosting and getting ready for Atlanta and Orlando, and I'm sure we'll have other things to talk about as well. We'll have a power hour in the morning at 10 till 11 to anything else that happens, because who knows what could happen the rest of the day. After the last 48 hours, I just wait and see. And then our plans, as Mike said, is broadcast starting at 3 o'clock tomorrow on 92.9 The Game, radio.com, Sirius XMFC as well. Kickoff is set for 3:55. It is on Big Fox. So that's the plan. Full-time report as normal. Southern Fried Soccer podcast, probably a little bit later than normal with Doug because we'll have to do that remotely. And that's where things stand at the moment.
Also, Charleston Battery Weekly will be coming up online later today. It is Mike Kelleher for his weekly visit. Dante Marini is player spotlight after getting one of the 3 goals in their 3-1 win over the Miami FC. 3 goals for the 3rd match in a row for Charleston as they're hanging in there with Tampa. And that's who they play this weekend in one of those playoff 6-pointers. Tampa Bay at Patriots Point this weekend. Big matchup in Group H in the USL Championship. Greenville Triumph programming will also be up and running. Marion Cole, Chris Ashley, and player spotlight there as well. We have juice boxes, sir.
We have juice boxes. As Shula Sean is reminding us in the Twitch pitch, we have college football back this weekend. Austin P.
Oh, yeah, Austin P in Central Arkansas. That's correct.
I can't wait.
I don't know if this is on the purple and gray pitch in Conway, or if they alternate 5-yard. At least they're old.
It's striped purple and gray in Conway, Arkansas, at the University. Ban them from all sports. That's obnoxious.
That's why I think they wanted to do it, so people would notice the University.
No, I notice it for being garbage. That's bad. I mean, I don't like the blue turf at Boise. At least they were the first ones to do something with it. The red turf makes me want to stab my eyes out.
At Eastern Washington, you don't like the blood red turf.
The gray turf is stupid. Just play on concrete if you want to give that appeal. I mean, the whole thing is dumb. Boise's is dumb too, but at least they were the first ones, and it's not as offensive. The rest are hideous. Teal turf at Coastal Carolina, they're dumb too. Turner, they're dumb just as much.
I think Eastern Michigan either has gray outline on their turf with an off green inside, or
outlines are fine. Well. Shades of green are fine. I don't have as much of an issue with that.
I think Eastern Michigan alternates as well. They switch every 5 yards.
Then they're dumb. If they do different shades of green, fine. Dumb. We're not getting a red and black pitch at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Chris Ashley. That would be dumb. Dumb. I hate these stupid things. And yes, Jarrett, it's one of the things I hate most in life. Ridiculous colored turf. If they alternate, they're even dumber. Gah.
So, juice boxes, sir.
No, we got more things before we get to juice boxes. You threw it out there, but you didn't read the statement. Jeff Reuter of The Athletic, USL spokesperson, issued this statement this morning about Dell Loy Hansen, who owns the Real Monarchs in the USL Championship. The USL is in regular communication with Major League Soccer and will support the investigation and its findings. So I don't know exactly in those situations. I mean, you have a club in USL Championship. They have a partnership with Major League Soccer. I don't know if that could even be flipped into an independent USL Championship team if you ever wanted it to be, or if it's only tied to the partnership because of MLS. So USL has issued the statement, which makes sense. I mean, we just don't know all the contractual things there. So they have issued their statement. Everybody has issued a statement. Nobody is happy with what did Doug call him?
Delroy Lindo.
What is that?
He's an actor.
Okay. It's not him. Let's not put it on him. Dell Loy Hansen everybody is investigating. Everybody is figuring out what steps can be taken next. And you got to get this right. You got to get this right. That's all.
That is correct. Trying to see what.
And Shula Sean, yes, I am mad that Boise beat the smack out of UGA years ago. That is absolutely true, but I've hated their turf well before that.
Jared Zabransky.
Fine, I don't care. Their turf is stupid. It's worse than the stupid pro combat uniforms that UGA wore in that game that hopefully have been burned. Those were stupid too. Anyway, now juice boxes.
Okay, well, Delroy Lindo is probably known for one of his roles in Ransom and in Get Shorty in the mid-'90s. So that's Delroy Lindo.
Okay. Who was he in Get Shorty? Because I am completely not knowing who he was.
So, of course, I click away from it. I'd have to dig it up here in a bit.
Yes, Jarrett, UGA deserved losing that game for dressing up like stupid red Power Rangers. Horrendous. All of it.
Oh, goodness. He was Bo Catlett in Get Shorty.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back and watch. Sorry, Delroy, but you're not in trouble here. It's Dell Loy who is in big trouble these days.
Yes. So, juice boxes. Starting tonight, Montreal and Toronto, and in looking at the Montreal Gazette and Globe and Mail and Toronto Star, nothing from either team on any kind of action about postponing a match tonight. So far, Toronto is minus 118, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal, and remember, this is a composite. Montreal is plus 294 to win. Your draw option is at plus 287.
I feel like Toronto's where I'm at with this one. I don't know if Montreal can pull this off. Even at home, I think there's a big gap in quality here. I wouldn't touch it with any juice boxes.
Okay. Do you want Atlanta United or Orlando City next or last?
Last.
Okay. 7:30 Eastern, FC Cincinnati and Columbus Crew. FC Cincinnati plus 326. The Crew minus 114.
It's just like the Toronto game for me. I would not touch it with a juice box because I think Columbus will win. If you want to parlay juice boxes with the two of them in the favorite situation, go for it.
NYCFC and Chicago Fire. NYCFC minus 132. Chicago plus 341 at your draw plus 269.
We're getting a lot of wide disparities in these today. I don't want to be fooled by Chicago having a really good win. I'm trying not to be. New York City, that's a really big-time favorite number for them that is incredibly concerning. I'll go with a draw on that one.
Okay.
Shooter McGavin saying the last time he bet on Cincinnati he made bank. And welcome back, Shooter. I haven't seen you in a minute. Yeah. I don't know. After getting demolished by Chicago, I don't have any good feelings about Cincinnati.
Philadelphia, D.C. United, fairly similar. Philadelphia minus 135, D.C. United plus 375, and your draws at plus 277.
I would not put anything on D.C. United at all. Not against Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia wins that 2 or 3-0.
8 o'clock. The Revs and Red Bulls. New England plus 114. The Red Bulls plus 237. Your draws at plus 243.
I don't hate the Red Bulls in this one, to be honest. New England's better. They're a better team, but I don't hate the Red Bulls' numbers in this one. Sorry, Shooter. I probably wouldn't touch it, or I'd go with the draw.
FC Dallas at 8:30 and Minnesota United. FC Dallas plus 117. Minnesota United plus 213. Your draw plus 264.
Minnesota all the way. I've got no belief in Dallas at this point that they can find the goal. No. Minnesota all the way.
9 o'clock Eastern, Colorado Sporting Kansas City. Colorado plus 174. Sporting plus 138.
Sporting. Even after, I think Peter Vermees has probably yelled at them every chance he's had. So Colorado, I'm just not buying it with them after what we've seen. So Sporting.
10:30 Eastern, it is the Galaxy in San Jose. The Galaxy plus 144, San Jose plus 161, your draw plus 285.
I have no clue about either one of these teams at the moment. The Galaxy were shockingly coherent and competent against LAFC. San Jose is madness at all times. I don't know if the Galaxy can put together back-to-back competent performances. So I will go Quakes. And Jared_Smith is very happy and yelling in all caps.
There you go. Portland and RSL. Portland minus 111. This one's also 10:30 Eastern. RSL's at plus 289. Your draw plus 268.
Portland all the way. I think there's serious questions about RSL playing the match, depending on what happens with ownership. I think there are also serious questions about their motivation in wanting to be there if they play the match. Portland will take advantage of that and win. Easy. That's the easiest pick if that match happens. That's the one that I do worry about the most. Hopefully, I mean, that's the hard thing for MLS is that game's supposed to start in, we're doing the math, 36 hours. Yeah. That's going to be hard to get something done. I don't know I don't know what happens with that one. I would probably put more money on it not being played because RSL doesn't want to play for their owner at the moment. I can't blame them.
Two matches on Sunday, 8:30, Nashville and Inter Miami. Nashville plus 140, Inter Miami plus 196.
I actually kind of like Miami in this one. Nashville played in the midweek. Miami didn't. Miami is starting to put some things together in terms of what their style is going to look like. I think Miami can give Nashville some problems here. I think some of the things Miami does well, Nashville will have problems with. So, yeah, I like Miami in this one to win.
And Seattle hosting LAFC, 10 o'clock Sunday night. Seattle plus 165, LAFC plus 138, your draw plus 285.
Seattle. I think LAFC's broken without Vela. I think their confidence is shot. So I go Seattle in that one to win outright.
And in the USL Championship, the one match in Group H that folks will be looking at from an Atlanta United 2 perspective is on Saturday night, 7:30, Charleston hosting Tampa Bay. Charleston is plus 237. Tampa Bay, who leads Group H right now, is at a plus 108.
Okay, Atlanta United and Orlando, what are the numbers?
Atlanta United, a slight favorite in the composite with the juice boxes. Atlanta United is at plus 147. Orlando City plus 174, and your draws at plus 249.
I mean, you get a home team that I think is the better team with a plus number. You have to like it. So that one, I would think, would see some action across the board because there's going to be a lot of people who think Orlando will get the win here based off the MLS's back tournament. That feels like the most appealing match from a action standpoint both ways. Because those numbers are all good for you. So I think Atlanta wins it. I think it'll be crazy, but I think Atlanta wins it just because I think Orlando will get sloppy as the second half goes on. I don't think they have enough depth to play this kind of schedule right now. I think they need to find some players on the bench who can help them more. And I don't think DK and Schlegel getting the start on Wednesday really changed that narrative. I think they've replaced starters. I don't think those were rotation things. Akindele hasn't been great for them. Dwyer's hurt. DK gets the job. He's done great. He's going to be the guy. It's not a rotation thing. He's taken the slot. Antonio Carlos has been good, and maybe he was a rest situation here, but he hasn't been good enough to say that he's got a lock on that spot. Schlegel got the opportunity, and we'll see if there's more rotation there, but I don't know who else you rotate. The rest of the guys, that's your starting lineup. There's really not a whole lot of question about it. So I think they will get tired and it will show, or they're going to play lesser players and that will show. So I think there will be sloppy moments from Orlando, and Atlanta finds a way to exploit it.
You said 3-2, correct?
Yep.
Using that number as the over-under of 5 in the composite is listed as a plus 740.
Wow. Hold on. We have some breaking news, and I know somebody who will be happy about this. I am happy about this. Come on. There it is. ESPN Plus has acquired the Scottish Premiership rights for the next 5 years.
Wow.
Jarrett Smith, why are you not in all caps in the chat room? Jarrett, what's going on here? Scottish Premiership rights for the next 5 years to ESPN Plus. That was one of the leagues that we were waiting to see what was going to happen. Awaiting final signatures. This is from World Soccer Talk, so it probably won't start right now. It'll probably start in September after the international break. All of the matches selected for broadcast will be exclusively available via ESPN Plus. There's no word yet whether select games may move to television, but it's unlikely at this time. BR Live had the rights, but didn't really show much of it previously. They were unable to get a deal done for the start of the season. Obviously, Celtic has the largest fan base in the U.S. Rangers would be next. But Atlanta United fans wanting to keep an eye on Aberdeen, because I don't think the John Gallagher loan will be the last time that a player goes from Atlanta to Aberdeen. And you could see players from Aberdeen come more than likely to Atlanta United too, but potentially players as they develop through the first team at Aberdeen could come to Atlanta United's first team. Lewis Ferguson is one that I would be watching. Lewis Ferguson's a player that I think can play in Major League Soccer and can play for Atlanta United. So keeping an eye on what's going on over in Aberdeen is a good one here. World Soccer Talk understands that the deal also includes the Scottish Championship, League One and League Two, as well as Scottish Championship or Scottish Challenge Cup and League Cup competitions. I would assume that you would see random Championship and maybe League One or League Two games in there. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe they throw them all in there. Dundee United with Ian Harkes is another player and club to keep an eye on here. The Cup games will be good. I mean, it's a very interesting competition. I watched a decent bit of Aberdeen last year from Red TV, which was a more expensive subscription, and you just got Aberdeen games. So Jarrett _Smith has fallen under a table somewhere, Ricky Ricardo, because he is not commenting, and I'm very disappointed in Jarrett _Smith right now.
Pafka says, and this is basically in all caps, he says, "Oh, hell yes, bring on Aberdeen every weekend," with multiple exclamation points.
Yeah, no, I'm all in. That's exciting. We've got some other news that even John doesn't know about, so we'll go ahead and do that. Because it became approved during the show this morning. So you guys know that we like a certain subscription service called Fanatis. They don't have the Scottish Premiership, but they have the Argentine Cup of whatever they're going to call this cup, and they have the league, and they have Colombian matches, and they have a Brasileiro pack now, and they have BN Sports if you don't have that. They have Gold TV. John, they have a package in Italian. You can watch Serie A on ESPN Plus, remember? Let's not confuse people. You watch Serie A on ESPN Plus, so you know this. It is a pack if you want to watch it in Italian. They have Rai, the Italian network. That's a separate pack. Let's focus on the big ones here that we talk about a lot. So South American games, Copa Libertadores, Copa Sudamericana on BN Sports. Fanatis has all that. You can get a Fanatis pack and help the show if you're not a subscriber, or change your subscription if you're already a subscriber and you want to help the show. You can go to fntz.co/soccerdown here, and you can help the show by subscribing to Fanatis.
Love that.
We are officially an affiliate of Fanatis now, so very cool. It's been cool talking to them and getting things sorted out and becoming a partner of a service that I've been a subscriber to for years. So
you got me hooked.
Fanatis, fntz.co/soccerdown here. That is the link to join our affiliate program. We're going to tweet it out here in a minute as well. We'll be blasting that out on our website, and we will be talking about it during shows as well. So fntz.co/soccerdown here. We are an affiliate of Fanatis, and it's very cool because, again, when I found them, they're a service that I really like and have been talking about because I like them. And now to have a relationship with them, it's very, very cool. So we're working on some other things too as we go. We'll see what else we can do together. But Fanatis and Soccer Down Here are buddies. We are affiliates.
Jonathan Tannenwald says OL Reign has announced Megan Rapinoe has opted out of playing in the NWSL's Fall Series games.
It's not really a surprise.
Nope.
It's hard. I mean, look, I don't know how to feel about it. She's doing amazing work for social justice and equality and everything that she is involved in. I think she's got a series coming up on HBO. I mean, she's got so much going on. That's great. Does she play for OL Reign or not? Because I don't know anymore. Is she going to play for the U.S. women's national team next year? I mean, she hasn't played club for a while now. Like, I don't know. And that's fine. That's for her to answer. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just I don't know where her priorities are at this point as a playing standpoint. And if they're not, there's players who can take her spot for the U.S. women's national team, but she would be a player you'd be counting on in the Olympics next year, and I don't know if you really can right now. So the work she's doing off the field is amazing, but at this point, like, I don't really even factor her in as a player for OL Reign right now. So I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. So not surprised, though. I mean, for these games especially, because these are essentially friendlies. You know, if she wasn't going to play in the Challenge Cup, she wasn't going to play in this. There's no point.
And then Get French Football News has something out where it says PSG sporting director Leonardo called Jorge Messi to confirm the League One club wanted to sign his son this summer. Lionel Messi's father told the Brazilian that his son has chosen to join Manchester City, according to L'Equipe.
Jarrett's finally caught up on the Scottish news.
Yes.
Good job, Jarrett. Thank you.
Mostly consonants and a lot of exclamation points.
Good stuff. Update on Messi, and I think somebody you guys want to follow if you're interested in all of this is Guillem Balage, Guillem, and last name is Balage, Balague. Writes for so many different places, it's hard to keep up. Writes for the BBC in England, covers La Liga for them, but he just covers the game, and he's got a YouTube channel, although he's taken a hiatus from that because he's about to start writing a book about Diego Maradona that I'm on pins and needles to wait to see. But he just tweeted, next step in hashtag Messi case. El Periodico is saying that Messi has asked for a meeting with Barcelona with the intention to reach a friendly agreement and a way out as soon as possible so the situation doesn't get any worse. That has been confirmed by Balague's sources, and now it's up to Barcelona to sit down or say no or what. But the ball is in their court. Balage has been the guy covering this who has not jumped to the tabloid stuff. He has been very clear in what he knows, what he doesn't know, and what he thinks about what other people are saying that he doesn't have an answer on yet. So highly recommend following him. Hopefully he will keep dropping in during all of this while he's writing his book, but he's trying to take some time before the start of the next season to get into the book. So hopefully he doesn't disappear on us. But Guillem Balage has been great with it, and I trust his sources completely. So, you know, it sounds like first step, and Balage said this consistently about City, is Barcelona has to tell the world what they're going to do. Are they going to allow him to go, but only at a high price? Are they going to allow this clause to go without taking it to court? Are they going to work with Messi to get him where he wants to go? What are they going to do? And once that's known, then Manchester City can jump in and do whatever. So, okay. Lots of different things. Jared is yelling in the Twitch chat about Celtic burning their house down. Watch it with him. Yes. Also talking trash about Steven Gerrard, which is accurate. Byrne says, can you guys in a future show walk us through how to sign up for Fanatis so it benefits you, please? Slowly for technologically challenged people. We will have John get his stuff sorted out, and he will be the guinea pig because he usually is.
Well, I've got a subscription to Fanatis already.
Well, maybe you'll just have to get another one. We'll figure it out.
I'll let the boss get a Fanatis subscription.
Yes, we will figure out what that looks like. Jarrett's still yelling. Turner Kirby said make a panel with sponsors of the show on the Twitch page. We will. That will be happening now that we have a couple different affiliate programs going on. We have the Coaches Voice Academy as well for those of you who are coaches or have friends who coach. That's another one that a subscription helps us. So now that we're starting to move up in the world, we will try to move up in the world with it. So more of that is coming. Tesco asked about the Argentine Cup, which is what I'm looking forward to on Fanatis. The Copa de la Liga Profesional de Futbol 2020 is the next competition. It is set to start on September 27th, if all is approved. There's questions about everything moving forward because we have seen River this morning have to put a halt to training because of a positive test, and I believe it was a staff member. It might have been either the athletic trainer or somebody in that department who tested positive. And I'm watching Te'ise now, and I guess they took the team for testing because they took the team bus to a medical facility. So that could slow things down. But that's the plan, is September 27th. Final would be on December 13th. It's basically a mini league competition. There is talk about friendlies before that, especially for the teams that are going to be going into Copa Libertadores, which would start a week and a half before this. So Fanatis could pick those friendlies up. Those are a little trickier. Usually you don't have a lot of notice that they're going to be on there. But if they're on Te'ise, if they're on TNT, which is the other broadcaster of games in Argentina, they should have them on Fanatis if they can grab them. They've grabbed everything that they can out of Argentina. I would assume any friendlies would be part of that.
We are officially caught up on Twitter, sir.
Yes, so we're going to go for now. Keep an eye on our social media at Soccer Down Here. The plan is for the run-up at 7 o'clock. If games are canceled, maybe it becomes something else. We'll see what it looks like. I don't know. I mean, you guys heard it this morning. Mike is concerned. Doug thinks there's going to be games. Jeff Lorenowitz said there's going to be games. Stephen Glass and Brad Kazan are speaking to the media in just over 90 minutes, which would be typical for games. We have referees assigned now. I've not seen anything on Sports and Aviation about charters being canceled. We'll see. Ricky Ricardo's learning some things about how predictions go today. He is he's connecting the dots. Ricky, you're not far off. Just, you have to understand some things. It's okay. It's all right. Not a conspiracy. John's confused, but that's nothing new. So 7 o'clock is the plan for the run-up. Tomorrow morning, Power Hour, 10 o'clock. If you can't join us for those, broadcast plans for the match are 3 o'clock pregame on 92.9 The Game, kickoff 3:55. It's also on radio.com app. It's also on Sirius XMFC, channel 157. Full-time report following the final whistle for an hour, and then I'll be on Southern Fried Soccer with Doug later in the day. So that's the plan for now, and we will see what happens between now and 7 o'clock. As to if it's the run-up, if it's Soccer Down Here PM, we'll see. We'll see what else comes out of Utah, because I would imagine there would be more updates on that situation as we go today, as things have to get resolved rather quickly to fix this, because, man, is it busted. Mm-hmm. If you have not seen the comments, and I know they've been reported in a variety of different places, that Chris Wondolowski made yesterday, please go and read what Wando had to say. Such a credit for this league, such a credit for soccer in the United States. I really hope when he steps off the field that he stays involved in some form or fashion, if he wants to coach, if he wants to be involved in broadcasting, if he wants to be involved in leadership. We need more Chris Wondolowskis in this league and in American soccer. So please go read what he had to say about the protest from Wednesday and just his feelings. He's a guy I think you should be paying attention to. So please do that this afternoon. Please keep up with what's going on. We'll be back at 7 in some form or fashion. Mucho platiel.
Mucho platiel.